There's been a lot of talk about NAFTA lately, and this question comes in from Jack James on Facebook, and he wanted me to just talk about the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is what NAFTA is, and the pros and cons and kind of what it is. So I thought I would explain it to you guys and just go over a list of what I think about it. So the North American Free Trade Agreement. Well, back in the old days, before 20 years ago, any imported goods between Mexico, Canada, and the United States, they would be taxed. They were called tariffs. So they would be, any imported goods that were not domestic, they would have an increased price tag from tariffs of about 15%. So they'd be more expensive than the stuff made within your own country, which promoted people to buy stuff within their own country, which promoted a better domestic economy, theoretically. So in 1994, I believe it was the Clintons, was it the Clintons? They negotiated this deal, January 1st, 1994. They signed it where those tariffs on all those imported goods, they were lifted. There were no more tariffs, no more taxes. So all the imported goods, they were all just as competitive of the domestic products, if that makes any sense. So now if you get something from Mexico, or if you're in the United States and you get something from Mexico or Canada, there's no taxes on it. So it's competing with any United States product, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go over some pros and cons here. That's just kind of some background information on it. So what did this do after 1994? What did it do? What were the pros? I'll go over the pros first. So obviously what this did was it promoted trade between Canada, United States, and Mexico. And so, actually what happened was trade increased by fourfold. So there's 4 times the amount of trade between the countries after the agreement was signed than before, because everything's cheaper now. Everything gets moved and it's free. There's no taxes on it. Excuse me. So what else did it do? Well, because you could, import oil, from Canada for, no tax. You could, actually, I'll go over this here. So it decreased the cost of oil, actually. So as everyone should know, when the cost of oil goes down, the cost of everything kind of goes down, because oil is used to make everything, right? So, sometimes profit goes up and the cost stays the same, but when the price of oil decreases, the cost of everything decreases, because oil is just used for everything, right? Like cars, gas, whatever. So what actually happened, decreased oil prices because now you could import oil for free. It decreased reliance on oil from the Middle East, which is good. So we got the hell out of there. And this actually decreased the cost of food too. So it pretty much just made everything cheaper for everyone. Decreased food cost. So in terms of how it would affect you, it just makes things cheaper for you. I'll get to a con of what will happen once everything's cheaper. But so everything's cheaper for you. Let's see what else I have here. What it did, because there was more trade and more activity, it boosted GDP on average between the 3 countries, boosted GDP by about 0.5%. People were making more things, they were buying more things. Everything's great. Prices are good, everyone's buying stuff. So that's good. 0.5% increase in GDP, that's drastic. And this was mainly in agriculture, automotive industry, healthcare, financial services. Those are the ones that did the best after this NAFTA free trade agreement. Let's see. So here's the one that which was kind of argued about here. I'm going to write a con which is tied into this. So because there was a lot more trade, 4 times as much trade, there needed to be more jobs to physically export and import stuff. A lot more jobs. In fact, the number that I found was 1.1 to 3 million jobs were created for importing and exporting. Oh, geez, that looks fine. Okay, so 1 to 3 million jobs were created just from signing this agreement. Because obviously more trade, people, got to stock, boats or whatever, planes or trains or automobiles and all. So, and also people are, producing more too, manufacturers are producing more. So they needed to create some more jobs. This was in the United States, by the way. 1 to 3 million jobs in the United States were created from signing this deal. Now, there were some job losses, and I'll get to that in a second. So, let's see, another good thing was it's easier for countries to invest in each other. So easy for countries to invest. And so meaning that, it's quite plain and simple. The value of companies will go up when that happens. That's just, when there's higher demand for investing in companies, the value of the companies go up. That's just basic economics there. And it also reduced government spending by, it could outsource a lot of government contracts to Mexico or Canada or United States. And so all of a sudden, for example, if the United States government had a contract for, I don't know, making a tank or something, making 100 tanks or guns or something like that. If they could find a cheaper deal in Mexico, they could legally do that. And that might actually happen. It could. Because they could outsource contracts now without having to pay an extra 15%. So, anyways, those are a lot of the pros. Those are pretty much all the pros for the most part. I mean, there's probably some other ones. I think that those are the main ones here. Now we're going to get to some cons. So, Trump talked about, we'll cover the jobs one first. So, it created an estimated 1 to 3 million jobs, but from the numbers that I could find, there was a loss of other kinds of jobs. So by loss of jobs, I think it's about 500,000 to 1 million jobs were lost, but they were in a different sector. So as I said before, 1 to 3 million jobs were created for stuff relating to importing and exporting. 500 to 1 million jobs were lost in the fields of manufacturing and production in the United States. Because now what happened was, this is what Trump was saying in some of his debates and all that. A lot of companies and manufacturers, and they would get in arguments with their unions. So for example, if, a manufacturing company in Texas, in Texas paid their workers $25 an hour. That's a pretty good wage for manufacturing, I think. So they paid their workers $25 an hour, and they were losing money by a little bit or staying relatively neutral. So they go up to the workers' union and say, hey, we need to cut your wages by about $1 or $2 an hour. And the union's like, hey, we're not going to agree to that. We're all going to go on strike. So what did the company do? They pack up and they move to Mexico, where they can pay their workers $10 an hour for doing the exact same job. So that's how 500 to 1 million jobs were lost. A lot of companies, manufacturing companies, they just moved to Mexico because labor's cheaper there. Now, Canada, the labor is, I think minimum wage is higher than the United States right now by $4. But I guess when you account for the value of the Canadian dollar, it's about the same. I think minimum wage in Canada is what, like $13 or something like that? 12? I have no idea. 14? I have no idea. I guess that's a good thing if I don't know, because that means I'm not getting paid minimum wage. I don't think I'd work for minimum wage right now. Seriously, like, even if I didn't make money, would I go to a minimum wage job? Maybe, but I don't know. I don't think I'll ever have to do that again, hopefully. Hopefully my business and doesn't go tank. Anyways, where was I? I got to get back to this NAFTA stuff here. So 500 to 1,000 jobs were lost, and this is kind of related. So a lot of the manufacturers that did stay were able to negotiate lower wages with the unions because, let's go back to our example. a lot of people knocked on the doors of the workers' unions, and they said, hey, can you lower the wages? And yeah, a lot of them said no, and some of them said yes. So those workers that went from 25 bucks, a lot of them went to 23 bucks, because now all of a sudden a lot of people are getting laid off here in manufacturing, so there's more supply of manufacturing employees. So wages go down because they can afford to pay people less too, and they can also use the threat of just moving to Mexico. It's kind of a two thing there. So wages went down by, I couldn't get an exact number there, but it was a few bucks an hour minimum. So let's see what else here. Some cons here. Mexican farmers can't compete. Oh yeah, so Mexican farmers went out of business because they can't compete with American subsidized and factory farmed products. So Mexican farmers, they kind of got the brunt of this deal. Is brunt a word? I don't know. Mexican farmers, they had a bad time after the agreement was signed. Saying that, it was really good for their manufacturing sector, as I said, because all the American ones picked up and moved to Mexico. So they, a lot of the farmers probably got jobs in manufacturing somewhere. Let's see. Ooh, bad. Oh yeah, this is probably one of the worst ones. So it's also terrible for the environment, for a bunch of reasons, to be honest. So the first one is in the deal there was a deregulation of companies being able to, like the Canadian tar sands, I think. There was a deregulation there, like American companies were allowed to go in there and get some oil. Let's see, mining was deregulated for some reason. I couldn't find a lot of specifics on this, but one thing I did think of was because that there was 4 times as much trade, that also means 4 times the amount of fossil fuels and oil used to transport the goods. Which it's a ton. It has a big effect on the environment. So I'd like to, I guess that's kind of gonna wrap it up here. If you have any more comments on NAFTA, I think that covered most of the stuff that I wanted to mention. So as always, check out my stock market mastery program in the description. I don't know if it's going to still be on sale by the time I release this video, but check it out especially if you're a beginner in the stock market. It'll help you out a lot. I wish that I had a program like that available when I started. But I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.